Hello, and welcome to Chris's Corner, where ideas collide. As we all know, sports have been consistently evolving over time. The stadiums are getting bigger and more advanced, the players continue to get more and more skilled, and safety is always on the rise to keep players safe. As time continues to go on, more and more changes develop into reality, but one development in sports that is extremely controversial is bringing transgenders into their opposing natural sex leagues. Many difficult perspectives arise in this subject. As we will go through the recent activities revolving this happening, there will be many red flags that will show up. Now, before we get to the examples, let's talk about why this topic is so controversial. So the first point I'm going to bring up is the body differences in athletic performance. So some people argue against letting transgender athletes join in, pointing to the physical differences between males and females. They say that those assigned male at birth might have some advantages like muscle mass and stamina that could affect how well they perform in sports. The next point I want to bring up is fair play and equality. Fair competition is all about giving everyone an equal chance to shine based on their skills. Those against transgender inclusion worry that transgender women, having gone through male puberty, might have physical traits that give them an edge over natural women. This brings up concerns about whether the competition is fair and how it might impact the dreams of natural female athletes. Now, is there a way of finding a middle ground? It's important to realize that the link between gender identity and athletic performance is not a one-size-fits-all situation. Some transgender athletes may not have physical advantages, while others might face challenges adapting to changes in hormones. Striking a balance between being inclusive and keeping a fair competitive spirit requires a well-thought-out policy that takes in account the diverse experiences within the transgender community. Now, I know you've all been waiting for some examples, so let's go over a couple. So the first example I'm going to bring to you guys today is a pretty wild one. And this was actually recent this year. A man named Avi Silverberg, he was the head coach for Team Canada Powerlifting for more than 10 years, entered last weekend's Heroes Classic tournament in Lethbridge, Alberta after identifying as a female. Now, when I say last weekend, this article was released on March 31st of this year, so I'm not saying this last weekend as of now, but earlier this year. This article on the New York Post states that he casually bench pressed nearly 167 kilograms, beating the current Alberta women's record by almost 45 kilograms. And here's the part that gets me. So the current record is 124 kilograms, and it is actually held by another trans athlete named Anne Andres, who was seen watching Silverberg while volunteering at the event. Andres also holds the Alberta's women's record for the deadlift at 245 kilograms. So this is a really good example of why this is unfair, because now in Alberta, there's not a single natural woman that has any records for any lifting. It is all males who have transitioned. So as you could imagine, many women go through their lives with, a dream of being able to be that strongest woman of their country, and for their dreams to get crushed by a transgender athlete is just not fair. This other example I have for you is pretty crazy as well. My other example for you today is a transgender woman named Leah Thomas. Now, before Leah Thomas transitioned, she was obviously swimming with the men, and she was a mid-500s ranking, which means she was average for swimming with men. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In the 500 freestyle, Thomas's time of 4:33.24 from her NCAA title swim handed her the fastest time in the nation by more than a second over Arizona State's Emma Norden 4:34.87. But here's where it makes you think. Because, yes, they do have an advantage in this, physically. But if a transgender woman wants to do sports and she can't compete with women, then who does she compete with? Because now, if she competes with women, She's going to do well. She may not be like a Leah Thomas and dominate everybody, but she will be superior to most women in that sport. And obviously, due to their transition, they didn't want to compete with men, and they wanted to compete with women. But as of now, there are not enough transgender athletes to make their own sort of league. So it really does make you think, like, what is the next step? Now, if we take a step back here and we look at both viewpoints, so we look at the first viewpoint and we think, if this man decides to transition into a woman, he will have advantages over most women in that certain sport. But then if you flip the viewpoints around and you look at a different perspective, you have this transgender athlete who has felt like a woman their whole life, and they decide to transition, but they've also been competing in that sport their whole life. So it would be unfair to sit here and say, listen, you transitioned, so you're not allowed to compete anymore. And that is why this topic is so tough to speak on, because you honestly can look at both viewpoints and find how effective each side's arguments are. You can say one side is very effective, but then if you look at the actual, facts of the other side, then you can look at that and say, that is effective too, and I understand that as well. So now, as for my current perspective of this situation, I really do wish that they could just make a league, but unfortunately, there are not enough trans athletes that would be able to do so. So I think that before transitioning, I think that transgender athletes should really consider that they might not be able to compete if they decide to transition. So as for transgender athletes competing with opposite sex, I would say that I'm more against it than for it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is it fair? Is it not fair? Should they be able to compete in opposing sex leagues? Let me know what you guys think, and I hope you all have an amazing day. I'm out.